You're out of your depth, clown, and now you are unarmed. Oh, please. I hide knives in places you've never even been. I hope that doesn't mean what I think it means, because ouch. Punchline The Gotham Game number 2. We're continuing on our Punchline adventure, charting how she's evolving and where we're going. Thanks to the solicitations, which we covered in an over 45-minute long video, it's clear that Punchline is heading towards a confrontation with Catwoman, which ultimately is not that shocking, because not only did she shoot her back in the Joker War, but Tini Howard is time of recording writing both Catwoman and Punchline, so things are tying together on that front. We have a whole Punchline playlist, so if you're new here or to the character, you can check that out. Punchline's solo series is coming off of the heels of her backup story in the Joker series, the one that ran in 2021 and ended in 2022, and then was relaunched as a new series, The Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing. These Punchline backups have now been published in their own separate trade, The Trial of Alexis K, which does set up some details relevant to this series, and they're becoming more relevant as it goes on. The most pertinent things one needs to know is that Punchline was acquitted and that she has a massive fan base. She's also still as unhinged as ever in the Gotham game and showing no signs of slowing down. So yay for all of those who are looking for a more pure female villain who wasn't on the road to redemption. You have so many choices when it comes to that, DC. We tackled issue number 1 and now we're off to number 2. Cliff notes time if you don't have time to check out that video. Punchline is still playing in the arena of drugs. Her latest target, children, and she's looking to establish a foothold in the drug trade. In order to do so, she's using her connections formed in prison to form her own royal flush gang. But despite thinking she's flying under the radar, Batman is already hot in her heels. Okay, issue 2. Written by Tini and Blake Howard, art by Gleb Melnikov and Will Robson. And you will notice the shift, even if it's brief, the two have different styles. Not dissonant, but still distinct enough that you can notice the shift between them. The main cover is slightly misleading. Yes, it looks like Batman could be sneaking up on her, but it also looks like they could be about to team up. As with the last issue, there are numerous variants, but this time less so. This time we open on Batman reviewing Punchline's file on his back computer, and he's doing so with Nightwing for a couple of reasons. This sequence will serve as our cliff notes for how Batman views Punchline by having it be a conversation he's having with Nightwing. This will also serve to inform the audience what Punchline's status quo is in this series time of recording. They also do this in an offhand way for Harley Quinn. It's only a few sentences, but I have much to say about it. Like how Harley Quinn was obsessed with the Joker. Dr. Quinzel fell victim to direct manipulation. It may have taken her time, but she managed to shake herself free of his emotional depredations. Alexis K is different, dick. That one sentence perfectly encapsulates in some ways the trap that some iterations of modern Harley has fallen into. Although it must always be mentioned, for some, this current iteration of Harley is the only Harley I've ever known. So mileage will definitely vary on this. In an attempt to redeem the character and place her in an anti-hero position who can still have her villainous past but also be accepted by the heroes, the solution of some is to rob her of her agency. Rather than the nuanced occurrence of her original encounters with the Joker, which did involve manipulation on his part, but also choices on hers, because there was a lot going on there. It was more than just her wanting to fix him, which was part of it. It was also her being drawn to him as he was. And some of the manipulations that he employs unlocks dark parts of her that were already present and dormant, but that she likes. She came to enjoy being Harley Quinn, striking out on her own numerous times before ultimately breaking up with him, which she did for the first time in the early 2000s. So that is not a new phenomenon. And yet at that point, she remained a villain by choice. There was a darkness to Harley that was juxtaposed by her pleasant, bubbly personality. But that did not mean that she was completely nice or a pushover, or that she wasn't herself also an emotional manipulator. There were layers there. Sometimes some got caught up on the fact that she seemed so pleasant that she must be naive or silly. That was another thing they used to play with, that she was extremely intelligent in some arenas, but not in others. Harley and Joker's relationship was one that became extremely popular in the fandom, though those that gravitated towards it did not do so because of the abusive elements, but more because of the idea of us against the world, taking the elements of the relationship that they enjoyed and disregarding the ones they didn't, as one can do with a work of fiction. However, that rankled some and rubbed them the wrong way, as they felt that Harley and the Joker was a perfect example of an abusive, toxic relationship and should be treated as such in all avenues. This belief began to leak into how Harley was portrayed. Some became uncomfortable with the villainous connotation to such a character. Also, as she became more and more popular, the jokey, happy aspects of her personality began to be played up. Over time, a combination of not wanting her to come across badly, lest people read a deeper meaning into that, and that DC was trying to say something negative about survivors of abusive relationships or the like. If you've been online, you'll see how events can be interpreted and how people can turn them into campaigns and launch them against companies. But there was also wanting to play into the aspects of her that people were liking in many iterations. The fourth wall breaking elements, that zaniness. And as a result, this could sometimes lead to a more one-dimensional depiction of a once highly nuanced character. It's not to say that nuance isn't possible with an anti-hero or even a heroic Harley, but it's complicated given her backstory and needs to be worked for, unless one removes all agency. She never made any decisions at all. She was just a victim. Simple, makes it easy. No one needs to think more about it. And it also allows them to hand wave away her past villainous actions or manipulations in her other relationships, say with Ivy or others. But this way, it's an easy way to say anything bad she ever did, Joker's fault. This way, all the heroes can accept her and feel bad for her. This, in a way, also highlights the gap that she left. Because, as mentioned, there were a lot more things going on with her in her earlier iterations. But in more modern ones, she's moved away from that. So now there's a space that Punchline is moving in to occupy. And a space that she has lots of room to play in, given the fact that there are some strong core differences, despite the fact that there are also similarities. The question is, in changing Harley, how much space does that give her to maneuver, and how many new stories does that give her? That will remain to be seen. It could be a lot. It could be amazing. I hope they are, because I love Harley. Can she become fully fleshed out once more, and not as some deem her Deadpool light? She's even having a little event in her own book time recording where she's fighting different multiverse versions of herself. Next thing, she'll be killing the entire DC universe. The way Batman phrases this here, it makes her sound like she was completely helpless in this, not one choice of her own. That rankles me. Harley was complex. She was a victim, yes, but also a villain. A perpetrator as well. One could argue that there is more of one element going on than the other, but to remove all agency like that. Let me know your thoughts down below. Now on to contrasting Harley with Punchline, because that's why the line in the sand is so stark. They're really making an attempt to make that happen. So the part of that sentence may be less that is the view of Harley and more an aggressive attempt to combat views of Punchline as a Harley clone.
She's the Punchline to his setup. A woman molded by nihilism, pervasive dread, and the perceived cheapness of human life. But the Joker and I are similar in one regard. We have both trained our proteges to be a refinement, not an imitation of our concept.
Wait a minute!
The Joker didn't train Punchline at all. She did that all by herself and then hunted him down. That's such an odd statement. I can't imagine him framing it that way. I'm struggling. Also, is that equating Dick and Punchline on the exact same level and trajectory? They tried to do that a bit in Joker War as well. Are you trying to set up Dick and Punchline? Don't do that. I'd read it, but don't do it.
Punchline has already begun cultivating influence with the Royal Flush Gang. The longer I wait, the more the deck is stacked against me.
He's got jokes, ladies and gentlemen. You know, if you go after her yourself, it'll just validate her. Hasn't Bluebird tangled with her before? I must say, I do like the return of the concept that Batman does have a sense of humor. Subtle, dark, dad jokey. Just as long as it's only snuck in there a little bit. It's very golden age when he used to make puns all the time as he was punching people or shooting them, depending on how far back we go. Also, having Dick ribbing him for it is a nice moment. It highlights how close they are and how relaxed Bruce is around him, because jokes are not something he would make in front of everybody. There's just a nice casual closeness to this interaction, as there should be when Dick and Bruce are on good terms with each other. And yes, they are not abandoning the Bluebird plot, which was running through Punchline's trial. And the idea of Punchline seeking validation, whether consciously or not, is an interesting one that blends well with the social media aspect they've given her. It also introduces the idea, but potentially not intentionally, that Batman may not be the best person to move against her. That to be ignored could be a strong weakness for her, which could cause her to go off the rails and maybe make some mistakes. But that leads to an interesting potential story conflict, because how does one ignore a person who's doing the things she's doing? Because not all the things she does are bombastic in front of the cameras. On the Bluebird and Cullen front, we see that Bluff, who is a member of the Royal Flush Gang and fiercely loyal to Punchline, and Cullen Rowe's ex-boyfriend, who did play a role in almost pulling Cullen over to their side, is still in contact with him. And more importantly, that Cullen is still taking his calls. So there's still a pull there for him, and he is hiding it from his sister, so he's still got at least 1 foot into that Punchline world. It leaves us, the reader, in a place where we have to wonder what Bluff's intent is. Because he's calling Cullen from a stakeout and lying through his teeth. A new street drug, XO, what's that? Even though he's holding a vial of it. So you're left wondering, why is he still calling him? Is he just aiming to mess with him? Does he still have feelings for him, as it's clear that Cullen still does for him? It could be a problem in the future. Now, Bluff is on a stakeout at the chemical plant, which when we shift over to the assault itself by Punchline, the Flush Gang, is where the art style changes. It was very jarring at first for me. It took my brain a few panels to catch up with what had happened. They're here to take on Aiko Hasegawa, who has ties to Catwoman. I would not be diving that close to Ace chemical vats no matter how caked up I was. We're taking this lovely little cancer factory, Doc's Null. Yes, I'm aware Catwoman gave you orders. No, I don't care. You can either throw in with us or die. We aren't deterred by this, arrogant clown. The brackets mean that that's in Japanese. I really like this panel of Punchline. The different shaped eyes, it serves 2 functions. She looks more unhinged, but also a lot of people, most people, have subtly different shaped eyes like that. So it felt very realistic. It also helped that that is the different shapes my eyes are. You'll never unsee it now. They're completely different shapes. Punchline taunts the gang that they're being used so Aiko can get closer to Catwoman, which is enough to trigger one of them into attacking. And then you've got yourself a good old-fashioned Gotham Factory chemical brawl. Gotham Chemical Factory brawl? Yes. Which is where my opening panels came from. Seriously, where was she keeping that knife? I hope it was just behind her back and she was just like, you've never known the touch of a woman's back. Batman, who is already there, having taken out the stakeout van, now bursts onto the scene. This thrills Punchline, but freaks out the rest of her gang, for they are sane. There's a nice panel of him closing in on 1-0, or 10, as he's trying to activate their ace, the streamer they modified from last time with nanotech. It did not go well for him, and he's incoherent, so he can't even use this transformation for views. Whoa, is that the new kid? Worry not, Mr. Knave is still in beta.
Well, he better not look like that forever.
That joke hurt me. It's time to dethrone the king. We need a new king. Punchline manages to catch up to Aiko as she's trying to flee. And they have a showdown. There are some lines here that indicate that Punchline's just mean. Did the cat give you brain parasites? It's not about the money.
It's about sending a message.
No, it's not actually. It's about the turf. She really wants this chemical factory. She needs a distribution center. You picked it up in college on a lark. You're having a little villain phase. There are worse phases to have. Like sniffing around Batman's girlfriend. I love how unhinged she looks here. Dang. This is another thread that could be interesting if it's built upon. It's been something that's been brought up a few times across books, but it's never been fully pulled on. The idea that people are just dismissing Punchline is either a byproduct of the Joker, a knockoff Harley Quinn, an obsessed fangirl, someone going through a phase, an attention seeker, and allowing any of those things, even if slightly true, to cloud their judgment and how they're handling her. And the fact that she's still very dangerous. Even if people want to delegitimize her motivations, she's still terrible. As Aiko tells Batman, she's a poisoner of children, and she is. Batman does bust in at this point, but his intervention gets Aiko stabbed.
Punchline, I will hurt you. I'm not fun to play with. If the Joker made it look fun, he lied to you.
There's a nice coldness in her expression here. It's unclear if that's just always there, or if it's in response to Batman implying that the Joker is her sole influence. And yes, Melnikov is back. Rob's only had a few pages. Let me know which style you like better for Punchline. Guess I'll just have to make my own fun.
Punchline, you had better pray that she lives. If you aren't afraid of what I'll do, you should be afraid of Catwoman.
That little neener face she's making is so obnoxious. It would be fun if they just play into the idea that she's also really obnoxious. Just make it a character trait. Like, oh my goodness. Ugh. And that's a wrap on issue 2. So once more, mixed bag. Let's go through it. I don't know what was that? The pace is most definitely fast. We are on the ground running. Going from Batman seemingly just investigating the first issue to just being at this ace chemical battle, which is now happening. Breakneck speed, warp 11. Some of this can be explained by the fact that at the time of recording, this is a mini. So it appears to be erring on the side of making sure that everything it wants to happen happens, because it is trying to set up several threads. It was nice to see the Harper Row plot touched upon, which is exciting if you were following the Bluebird plot because she has lots of unfinished business with Punchline. But if you didn't read the Joker Punchline backups or the trial of Lexus K, that part could be difficult to follow. And depending upon your tolerance for people talking to their exes for panels on end, miles will vary on how invested that gets you. Now in this comic, you're dealing with a more human Batman. He jokes, but not just that, he makes mistakes. He doesn't deal with Punchline correctly here. He doesn't anticipate her fully. He allows her to use Aiko as a distraction and Aiko gets hurt. For some, this will be absolutely fine. For others, it will be another example of Punchline being elevated or overpowered. There are two things at play here that will determine how this scene lands, potentially even more, but two large ones. Batman has spent decades at this point being pretty much precognition man. At one point, there was a plot line where he was a latent precog. That was his meta ability. It's only very recently time for recording and in some arcs where that's been tempered. And he's been taken back to excellent detective, brilliant fighter and strategian, but not perfect. Not necessarily the same man who has plans upon plans upon plans. Inside the plan is another plan. Mileage will vary on that. Some people will enjoy that they've pulled that back a bit. Others will want it to stay the same way because that's how he is. He's prepared for everything. He's Batman. The second is Punchline. Some feel she's been way overhyped and that she's been given too much character leeway, and Batman not knowing how to just shut her down with one punch will not sit well with some. While for others, it's nice to see a villain seemingly get one or two over before they're inevitably shut down. Although some are concerned again that she won't be shut down. But if you just love evil and loving it Punchline, then this comic delivers that for you. This could also be the moment that gets Batman out of the way for the rest of this series, and then we have the other members of the Bat family coming in to try and deal with Punchline. We'll see where it goes. Now, this comic doesn't have the greatest depth out there, but if you're enjoying the writing, the art, and the characters, it's fun. It has action, stays on target, keeps moving forward, and is still establishing through lines that are linked to Punchline's past, as well as moving her forward, although not as much as some would like. Miles is definitely going to vary on whether or not this series will endear you to her or not if you're not already on the train. Choo choo. I'm still having fun, but that's just me. This was also a very quick read, by the way. It's one of the cheaper comics at $3.99, and it's sad to say that that's cheaper, but it's still very quick for how much you pay. It also ends rather abruptly. It's just like, Bam! Next issue. And don't think I didn't notice they're funny and oh so delish. They are different, but the comparisons are hard to avoid. Those are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Are you happy to see more Bat family members emerging? Do you like a joking Batman? Do you agree on this comic's take on Harley? Did you notice the art shift? Are you enjoying this book? Yeah or nah? Share your thoughts down below, and while you're down there, please all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day spent discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.